Today we're going to talk about one of the most iconic devices. It's been around a long time. It's been featured in movies. I think everybody has a stoner friend that has one, or at least knows somebody that has one. But today we're going to talk about the Volcano. How good is the Volcano? Now, I have to say, I am going to infinitely be impressed with one thing about the Volcano. You could do Volcano bag rips before you could play Halo. You could hit the Kano before you could drive the Warthog as Master Chief. Now, I just found this on their website. The first version, I didn't know this, the first version of the Volcano was made in 1996, constructed with the housing of a heat gun. Obviously not the safest way to do it. You don't want to vape with a heat gun. But they got started on this in the 90s? That to me is actually insane because this device is iconic, bro. This has been around. I've known about it as long as I've been smoking. I haven't owned one until recently, and I've been doing a lot of testing on my Twitch stream, which you should definitely join me on the Twitch. We do a sesh every night at 9 p.m. Eastern. YouTube doesn't pay me, but you can come support me on Twitch for free. Come hang out. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to me for free. But I have been doing a ton of testing with the Volcano. I think it had been years since I had regularly had access to one. And honestly, years ago when I was using one, the quality of flower I was getting was quite a bit lower. So now it's even better, right? You get better flower, the vapes hit harder. I do need to mention, this is one of the most expensive devices on the market. It's like 700 bucks. There's a cheaper version I think I'm gonna look into trying out soon. Leave me a comment and let me know if you want me to try like the cheaper Volcano. But this one's about 700 bucks, and I gotta say, not everybody's ready to spend that amount of money. Most people couldn't dream of spending more than a couple $100s on a device just for getting high. So at the end of the day, this device, it's not for everybody. But somebody like me, I'm smoking every day, or I'm vaping every day. I'm getting high on my Twitch stream. I'm making content around it. I do this for real. I had to get one. I had to try it out. And honestly, my first few rips off of it, I did them on my Twitch stream. I was really impressed. I was like, is this better than I remember? The hits on it were crazy good. I was not expecting to be able to take as big of hits as I was getting. Now, if you've been following my content journey, you know I made a video a couple of years ago talking about how herb vape should be better. And I highlighted a lot of my experiences. And I think I mentioned in the video that unless you're getting the Volcano, there's not really anything good out there. I knew back then that it was one of the best, but even today, with a lot more options, since I've made that video, I've been exposed to a bunch of different vapes. Let's just say I had a lot of comments, a lot of feedback on that video. Very constructive criticisms. Basically, a bunch of people calling me a dummy and telling me to try out some other devices I hadn't heard of yet. And now I have a pretty good grasp. I've used a ton of different devices, desktop, portable devices. And I will say the average state of devices is better than when I made that video. But the Kano's been out before I made the video. It's so dang expensive. Now, I want to say I'm very impressed with what I've heard about the Volcano. It's one of the devices they've been improving it for over 20 years. There's not many other devices on the market where they've been working on it since the 90s. What's funny, this is one of the only devices that's old enough to smoke. Like a lot of places, you gotta be like 21 or older to smoke recreationally. This is the only device that could legally smoke. I mean, you can find an old pipe or something from the 90s, but it's been around for a while and they've been improving it for years. There's been a few iterations of it, but there's a reason it's been around. It's actually really good. Now, a lot of people have been asking me, is the Volcano better than the Hammer? Because if you've seen some of my other content, the Hammer, this guy right here, is one of my favorite devices. The device that heats it up, the dab ready, the terp ready, however you want to call it, can heat up a banger, or it can heat up this Hammer for flower vaping, which I think is incredible. It's a lower cost than the Volcano. It's like a couple $100s cheaper. And you can heat up a banger, you can heat up the Hammer. You can do concentrates, you can do flower with the Volcano, but it's a slightly different device. This is gonna interact with a bowl that I'm gonna put on a glass piece, and I can use a number of different glass pieces. The Kano, you put a bag on it and you fill the bag up, or you can put a hose on it and you can hit it like a whip vape. Or I even plugged the hose into some glass pieces when I was ripping it through there. Now, I have to mention, I'm not gonna do any rips in this video. I'm gonna post another video with rips. They just have a higher chance of dinging this video or restricting it. And I want people to see this video with my opinion on it more than I want people to see me rip it. So I'm going to post another video with rips, and I'm going to show you the different ways you can rip it. Hopefully they don't ding either video, but also just tune into the Twitch and see how it rips over there. But comparing it to the hammer, the level of hit I can get is insane with this thing, but I can't get as thick of a vapor as I can get with the hammer. If you truly want that biggest one inhale, super thick vapor, you're gonna get that with the hammer. This can do really big hits. This can do really efficient hits, but you're relying on the fan in there instead of the power of your lungs. And the most people, or a lot of people, are going to be able to get a bigger hit with the power of their lungs. But I gotta say, this is some of the biggest hits I've got out of a device. And I'm constantly impressed with how thick the vapor is in the bag. I'm not like, oh, no, it's half as powerful or it's half as good as my hammer. It's just I can't take quite as big of a rip in one go. But also, this thing, it's really efficient. Like, all the AVB that comes out, like, the same color. When I'm using the hammer, sometimes it's darker, sometimes it's lighter. I'm getting very consistent results with this, and it makes the whole process easier. I'm still using a number of devices, but just the fact that I can stick this over in the corner. I don't have my bowl packed. I don't have my rig packed, but the Kano's ready to go, and it's almost 420 uptime on my Twitch stream. I just gotta hit the heat button, and in like a moment, it's gonna be hot and ready to go. It doesn't take too long to heat up. There is a mobile app I've used for it, or it was actually, I think, a web page, which you just connected to the device. It kind of worked. It's not super necessary, but there was one day I was watching UFC fights early in the morning. I was laying in my bed watching them, and I was like, dang, I really want to get high right now because I'm watching fights. And bro, I just go fill up a Kano bag, and I can just casually sip on it. Like a bag full of vapor, it's almost like a joint to me. It's something that I can try to rip through it if I want, but I can just take light puffs off of it. The vapor doesn't go stale in the bag like smoke would. I think that's people's number one concern is they see the bag fill up with vapor and they're immediately pulled into a situation where they hit a gravity bong and they saw that milk jug fill up with like nasty yellow smoke and it was just getting more and more stale every second that went on. They think they're going to experience something like that with the Volcano, but the vapor does not get disgusting like smoke does. Smoke, if you let it sit in your piece, you let it sit in a container, you let it sit in a bag or something like that, you inhale it a moment later, it's going to be disgusting. Really stale, really harsh. Vapor, it doesn't do that. It's going to dissipate slowly, and you might just have less vapor if you waited. Now, you can use it with a whip if you just want to hit it directly, but I honestly really enjoy the bag hits, and I think that's like the whole point of it. Hitting straight from the whip, I can't take as big of a rip. When you fill up the bag, you can let the hit cool off. When you're inhaling it directly, you're getting that heat sooner, or you're getting the heat before it has a chance to cool down. But the bag can provide like a fun experience. This is a really good like party piece. If you have a couple of friends over, you can each get like a nice rip out of it. Which on a ball vape, you could sort of do that, but you might want to pack everybody their own bowl. Because if I go back to comparing it to the hammer, the amount that I put in the Volcano bowl is almost twice as much, maybe a little bit more than twice as much of what I put in my hammer bowl. So when I do a Volcano, I'm committing to more flour. I know I can put less in there, but I find I've been getting better results when I pack it nice and full and I go for 2 full bags. Now, I've heard some people say they get 5 bags, 6 bags off of 1 pack, but I really strongly believe you're gonna get 2 good ones, most likely, and every other one's gonna be bad. If I go for 3 bags, they're all gonna be not that great. If I go for 4 bags, they're all gonna be wispy. One thing I've noticed is when you keep filling the bags up, even when it's not super thick vapor, when it's a light vapor bag, like you can mostly see through it, it's still like just as hard to clear the whole bag as it is if it's thick vapor. Like you still got to do the hit in a sense. So I want thick vapor in there. I don't know. So I'm really only getting like 2 bowls out of it. I usually start my first one on like 400 to 420. And then my second one, I'll crank the temperature up just to try to get the rest of it out. And the bowl is kind of interesting. It does hold a decent amount. The heat comes from the bottom up. So if anybody's like considering mixing a little bit of hash or wax or something with their flour, I would say make sure you put it on the bottom because the heat's going to come up. You put it on the top, it's not going to get as much heat. But also, this thing does so good with just flour alone that you might not need to try to spice it up or do anything else. So a couple of my favorite things is I don't need to use a glass piece with the Volcano. If you watch my Twitch streams, I get crossfaded on Friday. And look, it's only happened a couple times, but sometimes when you're drinking, it's easier to break a glass piece. piece, and when I'm using the Kano, there's no glass piece. I'm literally hitting out of a plastic bag. I could drop this 100 times, I'm not gonna break it. So I don't have to use a piece with it. I have the option to if I want to plug the hose into a piece. I've done it before. I'll show it in the hit video. But that makes it easy, really easy to maintain. I like to keep my glass pieces clean, so I clean them every day. It makes sure I always have a clean piece, and it's way easier to clean when you clean it every day versus waiting weeks and weeks and trying to clean a super dirty piece. But this just gives me an entire different experience. I have a disposable bag that I'm gonna be able to get a decent amount of hits out of. I don't have to replace it every day. Honestly, I've been testing this out. Like, I've been letting them get a little bit dingy. I've been trying to do as many hits out of it as I can to see when the bag starts to look a little yellow on the inside. Is it gross? Is it disgusting? And it's not. It really doesn't affect the flavor too much. The bags are really cheap, and you can just cut a new one, swap it out. So it creates like a different approach to doing it, and I like it. I don't think that it would be like my ideal main piece to have. Like, I really do like using the hammer for my rips, but when I'm doing my Twitch streams, when I'm hitting out of a bunch of different pieces, it's fun to just be like, all right, we're going over to the Kano corner. We're doing bag rips. So I will say, definitely one of the best devices on the market. And I'm saying device, I think ball vapes are a tool. Like, you can call them a device or whatever, but you still got to supply the piece. You still got to supply the lungs to inhale. This guy at the push of a button is going to take my hit for me, put it into a bag, and I just got to worry about sipping on it or doing the pull on it. I don't have to create the vaporization or the thermal extraction with my pulling like I do on a ball vape. This does all the thermal extraction, puts it in a bag, and says, here you go. So I think it's really cool. I think if you've tried lesser vapes or lesser flower devices and you really want that top level one, but you're not interested in a ball vape, the Kano is really good. I've used a couple other bag vapes before. I think the A-Riser Extreme Q. I think I used one called like the Herbal Air or the Herbal. I can't remember, but it filled the bag and the hits on it were pathetic. The Kano does an insane job. So overall, really solid device. Definitely really expensive. Not everybody needs one. And if you want more info, I'm going to put a link to my website. I'll have links or other information there you can follow along with. And I'm also posting another video that's just basically going to be a Kano sesh. Just hopefully if they're dinging a video, they ding that one and not this one. Either way, come get high with me on Twitch. And have a lit day, my dudes.